Thank you for joining, everyone. We're the Indianapolis Tableau user group. We're chaired by Ryan Moore, me. I've got 5 years of developing Tableau. My title is an analytics manager at Car Global, and I'm glad to see a lot of new faces here. And we actually have a few new chairs that we didn't quite get to introduce on our last meeting. And I'd like to pass it over to Clay to introduce himself.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Clay Mcneff. My background, my education is actually in chemical engineering, but I made the transition to data analysis and data visualization about 6 years ago now. I've been an everyday Tableau user ever since then. So, love getting in the tool every single day, finding out new things. It always amazes me how much you can learn, no matter how much experience you have with the tool. So. I'm currently a principal consultant at Seaspring, doing Tableau development, primarily within the Indiana government space, but I serve as a Tableau technical point of contact for many of the companies we serve. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Anne, another one of our new co-chairs. Introduce yourself, Anne.
Yep. Hi there, everyone. I'm Anne Hartman. I am the director of nonprofit solutions at a data analytics company called Datatelligent. And my background is maybe a little different than a lot of yours. So I was in the nonprofit space for about 26 years, spent about 15 of those years doing data analytics, and then moved into a leadership role. So I haven't been hands-on in the way that Clay just described with Tableau, but I get to work with customers who need these data analytics. So we're building these solutions for them. And so I'm super excited to be part of this group and to learn from you all, and to make connections and just keep the space going. So glad you guys are here today. Let me hand it off to Dakota.
Hi, my name is Dakota Bagwell. I am one of the co-chairs. I work for the Indiana State Management Performance Hub. I'm the senior business intelligence developer. I've been developing with Tableau on and off for about 7 years, which is crazy to say. So I was one of the fortunate ones to be able to go to Tableau conference this year. I'm looking forward to helping you guys out with a little bit of optimization.
Thank you, everyone. All right, moving into today's agenda, we're going to be covering the Tableau Conference 2022 recap. So if you weren't able to be fortunate to go out to Vegas and see this last week, we're going to cover the keynote that is usually the most important things of the new features that are going to be coming later this year and potentially early next year is sort of the hope. But some of the features that are coming are actually some of the most exciting ones that I've seen in years. And I'm very excited to tell you about the specifics that are coming up on that. Then I'll transition over to Anne, and she's going to be covering driving community impact, a nonprofit case study. And then we've got Dakota covering got optimization, tips and tricks on how to optimize your Tableau dashboards. So before we get into that, I need to walk through an important disclaimer. Now, normally this is more of an in-person thing where we're trying to stop you from doing anything illegal. And it's sort of boilerplate, but also very important that we're not allowing any of these things to happen where you're talking about collusive action. And it's things that we do need to discuss, but it's not very likely it's going to be happening at a user meeting. Now, what our purpose is that we're a member-led group. And we are trying to foster a community here within Indianapolis where we're talking about the best practices that we're seeing of how we use Tableau to solve problems within our business, or how we're talking about how we improve our own skills. And we try to have it as a collegiate discussion where we're showing, hey, this is what worked for me. This is something that I've had trouble with. And we're trying to have a discussion in person. And we're looking to do that in Q3 where we're getting away from digital. So if you have a location that we could put that on where we're having a more fostered community collegiate discussion, it's going to be great. Sometimes these webinars get a little bit grindy on us, and I can understand sometimes not wanting to join a Zoom meeting. So In the future, look forward to our Q3 to being in person if we can find a host, which we're going to push hard for. So if you know someone or you know your own company would be open to hosting us, that would be great. And then normally we have a wonderful happy hour that we can talk even more about technology problems and network. Moving on to the structure, where we set this up to where we have a few co-chairs that are experts in the field of using Tableau. They've used it for multiple years, and we're allowing those co-chairs to sometimes present, sometimes find people to present, where we're always looking for members to present. And it's not just the co-chairs, but we're also having the co-chairs organize the location, the agenda, topics, and dates to have them make sense. And we're also giving credibility by being experts within Tableau. So if you have a question that you are struggling with that you can't find an answer on, like the Tableau forums, we're here to help. We're the local, if you were to compare it to car enthusiasts, that if you have a problem with your car or Tableau, in the same comparison, we are always interested in either interesting problems or we're able to point you in the direction of how you might be able to solve those problems. So reach out to us with LinkedIn or some of the other links that I'm going to be showing you on here. It's going to be the best way to reach us is LinkedIn or our via email is going to be our best way to be reached. But going into the meeting format, we've been doing these at a quarterly cadence. Topic selection is usually by group suggestion and voted. And it's either implemented by our co-chairs, either presenting, but more importantly, we're looking for members to present. So even if your topic you feel like is not super in depth, we're always looking for either an introductory topic or an advanced topic. And we usually have one of each within each meeting that we're catering to everyone that's coming to our meetings, because we understand we have a wide breadth of either intro or advanced people coming to our meetings, and we're always happy to see both. So I was mentioning, reach out and connect with us with our LinkedIn page. It's also the best way to reach out to us. If you send us a message on there, we're going to be able to get back to you a little bit faster. And if one of our co-chairs could send this in the chat, that'd be great. To allow someone to click on that, I would appreciate that if one of us put that in there. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go into the Tableau Conference 2022 recap. So introductions and welcomes from the president and CEO of Tableau, Mark Nelson. He touches on that the theme of this is going to be based around music and rock stars. And a lot of the time that they're referring to the Tableau developers as rock stars. It was the first one back in person. And if you're wondering, didn't we just have one of these conferences? There was a conference in 2021 in November. So this was moved up to May. And I will say that some of these features, I wasn't expecting it to be quite so much since they moved it up, but the features that were introduced were actually extremely exciting to me. He moves into the data gap and he gives a theme of what Tableau does. And he explains that Tableau is bringing data to the masses. And he talks about the data gap of 70% of CEOs want their orgs to be more data driven, but only 30% are. And he's believing that the issues that we're facing is that there's more data coming faster to us. There's not enough skills within the employees that they're having. There's not the culture there to drive those skills. And the tools aren't there, which is what Tableau is trying to solve as a software. So all four of those things are the things that he believes Tableau is well suited to do. And I believe that since you're on this call, you believe it as well. And I think we're heading in the right direction. Not saying we, but I mean, us using Tableau, I'm a firm believer in it being the best data visualization tool. Mark ends up and he moves forward with the discussion of Salesforce and Tableau. He first touches on that there is the same shared values between both the companies, that they are extremely, they believe in the idea that business is the best platform for change and building for a greater good. He touches on that there's $500 million in grants that have been given out by Salesforce, the Tableau Foundation that actually sponsored the Feeding America that's going to be later on in this presentation also is getting help from the Tableau Foundation, but they've given out $100 million in grants. 6.7 million hours have been donated by Salesforce employees. That these tools, while being the #1 in CRM and data analytics, them coming together is going to be exactly as he puts it, like peanut butter and chocolate, that it's coming together and they're going to become synergized, that it's producing more value together as opposed to separated, and that when they joined, everything got bigger and faster. And everything that Salesforce was built on, he touches on that it was built on that the customer is the focus of everything. And he touches on that keeping great relationships is becoming even harder when everything's going more digital. He brings up that the Salesforce Customer 360, that every connection point between your business and the customer becomes extremely valuable, and that it becomes a gold mine that can be unlocked using Tableau. And that these two coming together, the unlock of being able to see, understand, and act quickly while providing a single source of truth for your employees to make decisions off of, is where the synergy comes in. So generation of the data and then being able to see and act on that data is where he's coming from here. Very compelling argument to me. Then he moves on to moving faster. He talks about how enterprises are moving to the cloud for the speed of implementation. They're seeing the opportunity cost of not putting their data in the hands of their more passionate employees and teaching them data-driven skills is not worth the cost of being able to put it, like the cost of putting it in their own on-prem is not worth the savings that they could potentially be losing out on in terms of opportunity costs. He touches on that 70% of new Tableau customers start in the cloud. And that is why they are transitioning and they are rebranding Tableau Online to Tableau Cloud. I personally believe it's a great rebranding. I think Tableau Online wasn't as specific as they really needed to be. Tableau Cloud makes sense to me. They're setting you up and having all of the Tableau server backend administrative taken care of for you, that you're just focusing on driving insights from your data. They bring up that they have accelerators when you're first joining Tableau, that you might not have any dashboards, that they have these pre-built dashboards for you called accelerators, where you load in your data and then you have insights generated immediately. This is giving a way to making sure that you're getting off the ground and getting value quickly. They go into a product manager coming out that larger enterprises are going to be able to be more able to scale, have tighter security, data governance, data preparation with more admin insights. And the one big thing that stuck out to me that they're bringing up is that you're going to be able to share this publicly on your website using Tableau Cloud. One other thing that some of the specifics on that, I'm not quite clear because I've not put a Tableau dashboard that's public. Some of that licensing I'm not quite clear on, but it sounds like Tableau Cloud is going to make that a little bit easier. They also touch on that they're going to extend the trial period for Tableau Cloud. And the expanded partner program, they're allowing the Tableau Cloud to be on Snowflake, which isn't something new, but they're going to be giving free credits for Snowflake. This allows a transition into JetBlue. JetBlue was chosen as a showcase for the dealers, or not the dealers, excuse me, for the customers, because they are using Tableau Cloud to get insights and make their decision improvements. Because they are a large company and using cloud, they became a great showcase of the purpose of rolling out this rebranding. A product manager comes out during this presentation later on that they're able to show that region-specific sites are going to be able to be stood up within the cloud in just a few clicks. So if you're a very large company where you're splitting on either East Coast, West Coast, or different parts of the world, you're able to click and generate a region-specific site within Tableau Cloud that allows better data governance, that if someone's on the East Coast, they're only seeing the East Coast data. There should be some compliance benefits from this, along with performance reasons. Other details that they gave were the customer managed encryption is going to be improved. So server management add-on, allowing more advanced analytics of usage, is going to be improved. Sharing publicly, like I mentioned before, is some of the biggest things for me. And they talked about more improvement on usage and adoption. So seeing one dashboard, or why a dashboard is going up in usage, being able to see what sheet is driving that. Then they moved on to the standard charter showcase. While this isn't, if you're a seasoned Tableau fan, you probably have seen this presentation before, where it's taking a business that was using Tableau in a limited space of maybe 100 people and scaling quickly to 10,000 in under 4 years. Now, if you're well versed within Tableau and you've been around the block for a few years, you've probably seen this, but it's critical for a new person coming to this and understanding that it's a perspective change of seeing that within a company and understanding it's a platform and not just the next business visualization tool, that it's a platform setting up a culture of learning, a center of excellence. And this gentleman right here is referring to his center of excellence and his vision for how he set this up within charter or standard charter was that it was YouTube for data, that some users were creating content while others were just watching that content to understand how to use Tableau, but it was the perpetuating environment that was driving data skills. That you constantly hear that we don't have enough data engineers, but allowing your passionate employees to be able to see how Tableau can be used for them allows this to lower the barrier entry, and it allows your company to be more data driven. He also mentions that the solutions within the box, that being able to put this tool where you're driving data skills and career development by driving the data skills, actually gives people more reason to stick around within the company itself, because you're developing them and you're investing in them, as opposed to someone just reading a Excel sheet that was given to them. Moving into Francois, he injects a lot of energy. He's great. He touches on the greater theme of music that they set out on for this conference. He talks about how Tableau went from being maybe the very niche music that you would have to go to a dive bar to hear, to main stage, like your favorite band, that they've gotten huge, but they're trying to do different things with it. That it was a small users of data in the past, and they've gone to trying to give Tableau to everyone, allowing everyone to be able to see the data to allow value creation from this. And this actually connects really well with the next presentation, the Feeding America, and it connects well with Anne, who's going to be presenting after me. So looking forward to that. But this is all in pursuit of putting data into more and more hands. Democratizing data is kind of what they throw out here, but it's to build a better world, and leading into the next showcase of Feeding America. So Feeding America has 200 food banks and 60,000 partner agencies. And what the theme of this presentation is, lowering the barrier of entry for potentially not data savvy organizations to improve drastically. So they were facing a problem of where are the hungry? What do they want? And can we meet those requests? And a lot of the problems that they were facing was they weren't able to join data sets together quickly enough. And Tableau allowed them to integrate it together within real time to be able to see a more comprehensive image of who their customer was, and to make better actions to avoid spoilage and logistic issues that you can imagine with this kind of scale, that you're trying to get food into people's hands that they enjoy from the supply that you know that you have on hand. And understanding who wants what was also a logistic nightmare for them, because their president or CEO was touching on that they used to only get data every 4 years. And that's gone drastically down because they have a survey that they're getting now in real time back. And they're using that data to coordinate to place where certain foods should go based on desire. This transitions into new features, and new features goes into devs on stage, but this was a slight preliminary thing where they were demoing something I find very exciting. It's called data stories, and it's attempting to give a so what to your visualizations automatically. It's giving a auto-generated text over here that's giving an explanation of what's going on within your sheets and your dashboards. And it's actually dynamic, and it seemed to work really quickly in their demo. They were giving faster analyst insights that might have been generated by an analyst over hours of looking at different drill downs within each one of these layers of information. But it actually, if you filter the sheet itself to different states, it was generating different text. They also demoed that you have the ability to expand or decrease how verbose you want this text to be. So if you know you have an executive that you're only giving bullet points of quick statements, you're able to drop that back a little bit. I think the speed at which you generate these, I think is going to be really important. So seeing the demo, it looks perfect. I think it's kind of a wait and see on how great this is. I'm optimistic. So if you're wanting to have insights generated that you don't have to painstakingly look at each part of your graph and take away a so what for your executives, this is going to be a great tool in my opinion. Moving on to the next one, model builder. So the whole point of this is touching on that idea of bringing what Tableau is trying to do is what they did to BI. So what they did to BI was take it from a select very expert users and try to take it to the masses. What Tableau is doing right now with Model Builder is what they're trying to take data science and do it the same thing. So they're building these tools that generates a model for you, and it's using Salesforce Einstein, and it's giving you all these guiding underlying information about the AUC, whether or not you have like problems within data leakage and top metrics. It's giving you all of this insight into that to allow domain experts to be able to build models, maybe on the slightly less important things. Like if you're at a huge company, you probably have a team of data scientists trying to predict certain things. But if you're at either a smaller company where you're able to use this model builder, it might be a very good usage for you, that this is all native. You plug in your data, you give it a certain target and certain other trainings on guidance for what it needs to do, and then you hit run, and then it's going to be able to build a model for you. I think it's great. They also demoed that you can pass information from the visualization back to Tableau, or back to Salesforce, excuse me. I'm very interested in on that, because I think write back has always been one of the weaknesses of Tableau, that once you get a so what, you need to understand like what do you do from there. But it's going to be interesting how this plays out. Domain experts creating predictions on things, I think is going to be very interesting, because it's just going to drive better decision making if the underlying guide rails that Tableau give you is actually very informative. So if that's good, I think you're going to get a great response for this, as long as it works out. Scenario builder. This is actually something that I was asked for at my own company, that financial what if analysis, that they have this scenario builder where you're able to create scenarios up here, up in the top left. And then you're able to click through and save these while adjusting parameters here on the left over here. And then you're going to get different results inside the sheet itself that you're able to compare over these scenarios themselves. Now, it's supposed to be driven off of Einstein, and it also has Einstein suggestions underneath and explanations of why certain scenarios are taking place based on changes. It's something I'm very optimistic about, because I've actually been asked to make a dashboard that's similar to this, and the limitations of Tableau have kept me back, where I need to be able to keep track of what an analyst has created in the past between, they create these certain parameters that they want to save it. and then compare back, that's always been a limitation, that the write back has been the missing piece within Tableau for me. So if they're taking care of it for me, all the better. Very excited about it. Then they transition into devs on stage. Nathan here discusses shared dimensions. So what this is allowing to do is, say, for example, you're creating a relationship right now or a join, you only are able to do it on one of the sheets or between one relationship. And it's usually set in stone. He talks about how this new improvement on shared dimensions allows you to create a more complicated data model, that if you bring in multiple fact sheets or fact tables, you're able to relate them on a common dimension. I think it's just going to be something that I have to play around with. The idea behind it's great. I've had some troubles in the past with relationships that I've always stuck with normal SQL and Tableau, or SQL and joins. And then I'm usually doing my own work in here. But if that simplifies things for me and I'm able to solve a lot of my sheet and data source problems within one data source that has a shared dimension, I'm looking forward to it. Web data connector, he touches on that this is a little bit easier, that he connects to Twitter immediately, is able to save it and easily connect back to it. He pulls down some Twitter information from it, and then he uses table extensions along with that Twitter and that web data connector. He uses table extensions, which is here at the bottom. And this is Python that you're able to pass in, Python and I believe R. And what this is allowing you to do, and it's massive for me, is that a connection level, Tableau is able to run Python or R scripts natively, that you pull in your data, and then right before it's creating an extract, that you're able to run a script and you're able to shape, clean, and score data that's coming into Tableau. And it's even able to be used on a live data source. So if you want to do those things that I was mentioning, the shape, clean, and score, it coming in and it being associated with the connection is massively better than the external connection, where you would have to go through TabPy or I forget what, rserve. I think that was the R version of that. I think this is going to be fairly big for someone that wants to put their Python within Tableau. Tableau Prep improvements. I'm not an expert at Tableau Prep, but this dev gets up here and she's talking about adding a row number within 3 clicks. Sometimes you don't have a row number coming into your data source and you want it to be added as a column. She does that in 3 clicks in front of the audience. She fills nulls with various methods in 3 clicks. And then she touches on multi-row calculations. Now, if you're not an expert within Tableau and you're writing either table calcs or LOD calcs, this is going to save you from doing that. You're able to do something like a moving average within the data source itself, and it's going to be able to speed up your visualizations, that they don't have to create these calcs either in Tableau using the table calc or LOD, or if writing a window function within SQL is a little more too complex for you, you're able to do it in Tableau Prep in the future. Ask Data now has suggestions. I haven't used Ask Data in the past, but I'm going to be interested in seeing how this potentially relates and how you might be able to use this in addition to data stories. But the improvements that they touch on here is giving suggestions. So you're normally able to search for things in here. And what the improvement is that it keeps track of what your suggestions are, or the searches that you've made. And sort of like Google, it's improving what it's suggesting right below it based on what you've searched in the past. Data orientation pane. So this is huge for me. So sometimes we're onboarding a new employee and having them understand everything that's going on within our environment of how many dashboards that we have is sometimes a long training process. Or if you just have a veteran employee that hasn't used a dashboard before, instead of having a training session, you're able to create a data orientation pane. So, and I'm hoping that this isn't only in desktop, But what it is that you're able to provide descriptions, definitions, data sources that are being used within the sheet and the dashboard, and links out to videos. And this is all here on the right side. You're able to click on the sheet, get information about specifically that sheet, or if you click on a mark or a bar itself, you're able to see information about that bar and that mark. So it's just a lot of information that you're able to give to end users without having to consistently tell or have training sessions on dashboards that you're creating for your audience, if you're making a dashboard for a greater audience, of course. Now, last one. This is the long-awaited image roles. And if you've ever had the pain of working with images, I'm sure you're going to be raising a glass to this improvement. You're able to now natively load images in a way that you're able to put them in the sheets itself without having to deal with putting in custom shapes and being able to maintain that. And if you're not familiar with that, you used to have to load shapes, and integrating them in this used to be a part of clicking within the marks here. You used to have to load each image into each bar, which became very tedious. Now, what they're enabling with this is that you're able to drag a calculated field out here that's associated with an image, and that image automatically pops up as a dimension. And this is going to be great for sales tracking for employees, or if you're wanting to keep track of things that you're selling in terms of either inventory management, etc. Just images in itself is just very helpful for an end user to understand the context of what data that they're seeing. And it's probably been one of the more awaited things why Tableau hasn't had that. But again, these are some of the features that I've been very excited for, and I'm very happy that they're coming around now. And one other thing that I did want to touch on, that this ends the keynote recap of the Tableau conference. There are a multitude of presentations that you can find on Tableau online. One that I do want to shout out is Hannah Fry's. Her presentation on being data informed as opposed to data driven is really, really great. I really suggest you checking that out online. You'll just have to log into Tableau's website and look for that under the keynote speaking presentations. Moving on to Anne.
All right. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for that. That was awesome. A lot of great information. And oops, I'm sorry. Oops. Can folks see my screen? I'm sorry about that.
Yes, we can, Ann.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having some technical difficulties here. All right, I'm not able to get this into the mode, the slideshow mode, but I will just start talking. So as Ryan mentioned, you know, the Tableau is putting out some really awesome features, and what it's doing is allowing more people to access data than have ever been able to do so before. So and where I've come from the nonprofit space, and there have always been, so we've always called ourselves, you know, there are some data geeks and so forth in every nonprofit shop, but there's usually just a handful. And what we really need is to provide staff, especially folks in operations, as well as in the executive suite. You know, we need to provide them with access to tools that they can that are not intimidating. So they will start using the data that they have at hand to make those data informed decisions that Ryan was just talking about. And so today, what I'd like to talk with you about is sort of a case study that we did with one of our customers. So we work with nonprofit and higher ed folks to help them leverage their data to tell stories. And The organization that I would like to talk to you about today is the Indianapolis Community Food Access Coalition. It's a mouthful, so I will just refer to them as the coalition for this presentation. But they are really oh, here we go, yay! They are very focused. Oops. Sorry, guys. They're really focused on providing equitable access to healthy foods, and so especially and it's this is it's sort of a neat collaboration between the city of Indianapolis and the nonprofit sector, and they really focus on expanding the market for food. So they work with local growers, and they have programs to help get local produce into local stores. And the goal is to improve healthy eating habits. So one of their programs is called the Lyft Grocery Access Program. And this is something that started back in 2019 on the Far East side of Indy. And then it expanded on the near west side in Indy in 2019. And the goal of the program was to provide people who lived in food deserts with access to healthy food. And I'll talk a bit more about food deserts here just in a minute. But people were allowed 10 to 12 Lyft rides to the grocery store each month. And when it started in 2019, there wasn't a big uptake on the program. There was an awareness issue, but there also just wasn't the pressure that came once the pandemic started. And in March 2020, the demand for the program really exploded because people were, we were all in lockdown and public transportation wasn't accessible, but people still needed to get food, but a lot of people didn't have cars. And so the program, there was really a big uptick in the program, especially for those folks who were living in these food desert areas. And I'm guessing that some of you may have heard that term before, but for those who haven't, a food desert basically it's just an area where it's difficult for people who live there to have access to healthy, nutritious food and at an affordable price. And what, as I was digging in preparation for this presentation and also just working with the coalition, learned some pretty interesting facts about Indianapolis food deserts. So the USDA ranked Indianapolis the worst city for food deserts in the country. That was pretty astounding to me. So 200,000 people live in a food desert. That's 1/5 of the folks who live in Indianapolis. And 71% of Marion County residents' census tracts have low access to food. And the bigger, more, I guess maybe more of an alarming statistic was that this number is growing, and it's grown by 10% since 2016. So the need for this program, this Lyft Grocery Access Program, was real, and it was growing. But one of the main challenges was that the data that the coalition was getting back from Lyft, they weren't able to do much with it. They didn't have a data analyst on staff. They didn't know, they couldn't even get a quick, easy count of the number of rides that they were providing each month. And they also needed to make sure that the rides were limited to Marion County residents. And they didn't have a way to really do this quality control check because they just couldn't manage the data. And they also, in order to tell folks the story of why this program was having an impact, they needed to have some demographic data around the riders. But Lyft, because of privacy permissions, didn't allow collection of demographic data. So they needed some proxy data for that. And then finally, if they weren't able to demonstrate the impact of this program with hard data to give back to their funders, then the program was in jeopardy. And so really what they needed, and it was pretty simple, but again, if you're not a data person, or you haven't been, or you don't even have access to these tools, it's really not so simple. But what they really needed they wanted the number of rides per month. They needed to know, they had a finite amount in their grant, so they needed to know what their monthly spend was, so they didn't overspend. And they needed to see the unique versus repeat riders. They also wanted to see when people were using the service, by time of day and day of week. And then because they're interested in providing access to local grocery stores and healthy foods and so forth, they were interested in seeing how many different stores people went to and how far they had to travel to get to the store. And then they wanted all of this down to the zip code level. And so what we did, and again, for those of you who are high level and very technical folks, this is not a deep dive. But again, a lot of times the answer, it doesn't have to be hard. It's a lot of times we just say simple is better, let's get started. And so what we did is we pulled in the Lyft data. We pulled in the SNAP store location data, and SNAP is the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, so people usually call it food stamps. We also then brought in some census data to provide that demographic context. And then finally, we brought in a food desert shapefile. And we used, Ryan had mentioned Tableau Prep. So we used Tableau Prep to combine some of the fields in the Lyft data that were different because the columns changed over time. And so we were able to combine those data using Tableau Prep and then push them out to Tableau dashboards. And again, as Ryan mentioned, Tableau Prep, that's a tool that's built into Tableau. It's on Tableau Online and Tableau Server. That's included in the cost of that, but it's an extra cost if you just have Tableau Desktop. And it allows you to connect to a variety of data sources, including databases and files. And I will say that I believe that it's Dakota who is sort of an expert on Tableau Prep, or he's done a lot of work in Tableau Prep, so you might hit him up if you have specific questions about that. So what we had, and this isn't, again, not high level, but it wasn't easy for the folks at the coalition to deal with, is so the pickup month and year, for some periods of time, it was just one field, and it was text-based. And then it changed to two separate fields that were numeric. The trip time period went from military time to categorical. The trip length went from categorical to a specific numeric value in miles. And the trip duration, again, went from categorical to a specific time period in minutes. So what we did, we provided just that quick, those big numbers at the top to make quick, easy access to that information. So we were able to show the number of rides, the total dollars spent, and the number of unique riders. And then we could filter that at the zip code level. So what I'm showing here, obviously, just in the screenshot, is this is all zip codes being selected. And you can see in any specific zip code how much money was spent on rides for that zip code. You could also see rides by month, rides by day of week, and then rides by time of day. And again, as you filter on the zip codes, all of these data elements would filter. And then this was something that was really important to the coalition to see how many of the writers were lived outside of Marion County, because the dollars were restricted to Marion County. And so by displaying the data in this way, they could drill down to the individual rides and give those the ride ID back to Lyft, give them very specific information and say, hey, we can't have folks being provided rides outside of Marion County. And then on this next slide, we were able to analyze the data and show the average number of unique stores by rider, again, down at the zip code level, the average distance traveled to the store, and the count of unique stores visited in that time period, and at that zip code level. And then we could also see, the stores that were visited, the number of visits and the average distance to the store. And so it's important because for the coalition, they're working with a lot of these grocery stores to improve access and improve the quality of food at the stores. So it was important for them to see which stores were most frequently visited. And then you'll notice the purple in this on this slide is the food deserts. And so these are areas where there are not grocery stores available. And then the shaded areas are the rides that people, the rides location where people took or had rides. And for instance, one of the darkest areas that you see over here is in the 46254. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with India West Side, but there's a Meijer that's open 24 hours there. So that was a popular place for folks to use their Lyft rides. And then on this next slide, what the coalition wanted to do, they wanted to paint the picture or profile of the typical writers, and they didn't have that data through. They didn't have that data from Lyft. So we used census data as a proxy. And one of the things that I thought that was kind of slick that our engineer did was they used this tool in Tableau, so you could select a view, and there was a drop down that allows you to select from multiple tables. So the dashboard is the same, but the table will change. And so in this one, we pull down the race and ethnicity data. And so you can see by zip code at the top, and then race in the rows. And again, you could filter to the zip code level. So this was really helpful, not only for this particular program, but the coalition staff used it for other grant requests that they were making, because they could see in a particular zip code, what was the racial and ethnic background, of these areas. And then using, again, same dashboard, but different table, we have sex and age data. And again, the columns are the zip codes and the rows are all these different ways to dissect the data. And at first, when we were working with them, we said, okay, well, how do you want to, categorize the data? We have all of these different variations, but we could, we can combine it into, 4 or 5 categories for you. And the response was, we really like all of these categories because our grantors, we have different grantors and they have different requirements, for us to break down the age in different ways. And especially because for groups who are working with seniors or, grantors that were geared towards seniors, they had very specific breakdowns, as you'll see, in the data. So we left it as is. And again, they're using the data for other grants because it's easy access just within this dashboard. And then finally on this, the they also wanted to see the socioeconomic data. So they wanted to know, in a zip code, what percentage of the folks live below poverty? How many were on SNAP? How many were on disability? What percent were foreign born? What percent didn't have a vehicle or were owners or renters? And so again, we were able to display this data against their Lyft data for them to be able to tell their story about who was using this program and the need and the impact that this program was having for folks in these categories. So from the community impact perspective, I mean, a couple things. The program management, they have easy access to these KPIs for their grant reporting. And that's, that was sort of step one, check that box. That's great. The census data by zip code, as I mentioned, that's become the quick go-to for other programming needs. And then the ability to demonstrate their impact. So with their data, that's resulted in renewed funding for the program, which is awesome. But really, the community impact is that more people in food deserts have access to this healthy food. So again, this is just a sort of a simple way to show how you can show impact with data using a tool like Tableau. And the fact that Tableau is coming out with all of these new features that are allowing more and more access, like lowering barrier to entry for that access is awesome. And I'm really excited for the nonprofit sector in that regard. So I will pass it on to Dakota.
Hi, all. And thank you so much. That is a really great use case, and it's really timely in the sense that if you did connect to Tableau conference, then you'd know that, and as Ryan mentioned, this was a big topic. And by and large, Tableau is as useful as we can make it. And so enabling data-driven decisions is an incredibly and powerful task. Being able to generate grant revenue, being able to generate impact and be able to document that at any level. So that is something we've been sitting with. I'm all talked up on this because I've been sitting with the Equity and Inclusion Office a lot recently. And so the idea here, making sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to, one of the most basic of things, right? Food. So moving on to mine, got optimization, right? So this is a part two. We had the part one, which was just kind of a best practices when publishing Tableau public-facing dashboards. This is an offshoot of that. One of the things was one of the steps we have is kind of optimize your dashboard. So this is a tips and tricks to optimization. Some of the things are going to be very intuitive. Some of the things you're going to be like, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. Again, senior business intelligence developer. I work for the management performance hub for the state of Indiana. For the agenda today, we're going to do a this or that game. So it's going to be kind of different, but have your phones ready, have your or mobile devices. You could use web if you wanted. But the idea here is we're going to go through a series of questions, right? So SQL based versus rational based, data source type, fact or lean table data sets, wide or long, case or if, numeric or varchar, quick filters versus applied filters. So here's how you play. Go to this URL, so pollev@.com or at period.com /D Bagwell 018. I'll give everyone a chance to sign in, but the idea here, right, you're going to head to that URL. You can play anonymously if you like. I wish I could tell you that there was prizes. If this was in person, I'd have Tableau swag for everyone. But the idea here is that you can put your name out there, and it's kind of a competition in the sense that you get 10 seconds to choose the best possible answer. You can flip-flop. as far as what you're hoping for. So if you choose one originally, you can switch it up and choose the other one. So there are 7 possible questions. There is 7,000 points max. And so the other point of this is to have fun. So I'll go ahead and let me see if I can get that pulled up. Make sure that is active. So this pool is active, so play. Let me see. So is everyone able to get in? I can't necessarily see how many people are playing.
I'm in.
You're in?
Yep.
Excellent. We'll give everyone a few more seconds, but the idea here, if we can, I see the chat. Perfect. Thanks, Clay. If I could just get a series of thumbs ups in the chat, then I can know. Yes. Oh, no. Here. And I can even post this in the chat. Make it easy. tv.com/. So this or that, one of those things that we saw on Instagram a few years ago, peak COVID, one of those things where it's like, hey, you get to pick one of these 2 things. The idea here, optimization, right? Oftentimes we get a series of choices that we can add up to how it impacts the final product of Tableau dashboards. Again, some of the things that we've been doing more recently, right? COVID dashboards, health and Hoosier wellness dashboard, equity dashboard. So all of these are decisions that we make, kind of starting at the very top with data and how it's structured, and then getting all the way down to the roots of it of how calculations are formed. So if everyone's all right with it, I can go ahead and start. So for the first one, Tableau, SQL-based or relational-based? So you guys get 10 seconds. Be sure to enter your responses. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see how everyone did. 9 results, good. All right, so this was an easy one in the sense that it was a trick question. It is SQL-based. Tableau is based on SQL, and SQL is used to interact with is rationally based. So this was a good warm-up, so everyone gets points. It's all about who responded fastest at that one, yes? All right, good job, guys. So for this next one, data source types. So which one is the preferred one, or which one is a bigger preference? 3, 2, 1. Oh, nice. All right, let's see. Very good. So Tableau likes to speak with Tableau files, whether it's on server or whether it's on in Hyper. So you'll see as you're using prep flows, right, you can package things, and I'm going to go through this in the slides here in a second, but the idea here being they have a myriad of connections that you can take advantage of. But yes, it loves talking natively. All right, Clay, Cal, boom. Perfect, right on. All right, next one, fact tables versus lean data sets. Five, 4, 3, 2, and 1. 10 results. All right. Nice. All right. So we're going to go over this. Fact tables versus lean data sets. When you're going to publish in production, the idea here is that fact tables are really great for exploratory work. However, when you get down to it and you're going to publish to a public data source or publicly, and you're worried about optimization, you want to be connected to lean data sets. And I can go over what that means here in a minute. See what the leaderboard's doing. Cal taking over. Nice. With a perfect score. And then we got Ann and Clay. Right on, guys. Good job. All right. A few left. Wide or long data source? 5 seconds. Got 10 responses. I think that's everyone. And 0. Nice. Let's see what everyone says. Long, very good. So idea here, Tableau reads top to right. So how we perceive information, same way, top to bottom. And every time you add a row that's not being useful, it renders a lot faster going down. And we'll cover that here in a second. See what the leaderboard's saying. Cal M, very good. Hey, had some movement at the very bottom. I like that. All right, 3 more questions. Case or if? So when it comes to calculations, you have a calculation preference. You can either do case calculations, you can do if calculations. And we will see 10 results. Ooh, 50-50. Nice. Well, you had a 50-50 chance to begin with, right? We only had 2 options. So the idea here, case, and we'll go over the differences. Case is very specific in the sense of case in or, and I'm going to, I'll walk you guys through how Tableau interprets calculations here in a second. And it's just one of those things that if you had to choose between the two, there's a reason and a time and place to use case and a time and place to use if. Hey, oh man. Upset, nice. A lot of changes there. Very good. 2 more questions. We'll see how this turns out, yeah? Numeric versus varchar. So for those of you that don't know, varchar or in varchar or is everything other than numerics. So letters, text symbols, things of that nature. Five, 4. Ooh, that was a quick one. I think everyone has a general idea of where we're headed with this. Yes, okay, so majority here, 8 of 10 people said, hey, numeric, and I agree with that. So when you're interpreting information, Tableau is a computer-based program in the sense that it interprets its numbers faster. And we're gonna get into where that matters and where you can find those efficiencies at. Hey, Childress, way to go. Cal coming back, boom. Nice, well, hey, we have one more question left. We'll see what that ends up being. Quick filters versus applied filters. Five seconds. 3, 2, all the entries are in. This is it. Who's ready for the leaderboard? If you're in the chat, smash it up, some likes, some follows. Let's see how what's going to happen. Ooh, man, you guys are pretty split on this one. Nice. Okay, so applied filters. We're going to get into this. It's a very interesting. So again, time and place for each. Applied filters is one of those things where you have to intentionally customize your filter options in Tableau on your dashboard, or else it won't pop. So more to follow on that. Cal with the return. Nice. Well, we didn't have anyone perfect, but you guys got really close. Good job. This is, I hope this was fun. It was kind of eye-opening. I'm going to go ahead and escape this and go back to the actual presentation. But be sure to take these learnings. And if you guys have any questions after this, either in the chat or you're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. We can always go over this stuff. So getting back to the actual presentation. Make sure I'm on the right one. All right. Next slide. So for those of you that haven't seen this, this is a Tableau's order of operations. So best way to understand how to optimize something first is understanding how the inner workings of it is. So how Tableau interprets data. So order of operations, right? At the very top, before extract filters is your data set. And then from there, it interprets, all right, extract data sets, data source filters, if there's any context filters. And then it gets into like kind of the first level of calculations, right? Your sets, your conditional filters, your top number picks, your fixed LODs or level of detail. If you guys don't know LODs, you let me know. It's one of those calculations that can be tricky to understand, but it's one of the things that once you get it, it's like riding a bike. And then we're going to go to dimensions, which includes then the include, exclude level of detail, some data blending, and then actual measure filters. And then you can get into your forecast, table calculations, clustering, totals, and then your actual table calc. filters. So the first topic we're going to cover here, SQL or rational, relational. It's relational. I put rational there. Sorry about that. The idea here, right? Tableau is built on SQL code, and actually, if you go through, there's a series of steps you can do that you can see the SQL behind what Tableau is doing in your selection. So if you're really struggling and you're trying to optimize your Tableau workbook and you want to see how things work, the idea here being, right, you can select or do some user experience on yourself and be like, oh, here's what I'm doing, here's what Tableau thinks I'm doing, and then you can make it so that it works in your favor. Why does this matter? It's how joins impact outer, right, left, inner, unions, things of that nature. So when you're blending information and when you're taking in multiple different data sets, it does matter as far as like how time things go. In a SQL world, right, you can do index columns. And so you can tell it intentionally, hey, these are like your key columns. This is how you connect first and then kind of filter it out. Tableau has taken that workload on itself and it wants to do something very similar, but sometimes you need to help it out. So every interaction, Tableau must render the data that has been supplied. So whenever you get the chance, and this goes back to the exploratory table types, if you break it down to the lowest level, right? Obviously, we tried seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, and go decades, centuries. The idea here being level of granularity and how you get to where you need to be for your dashboard. So again, lat long, street address, city, you could add zip codes in there, county, state, country, planet, solar system. Seems silly. While at conference, I gotta interact with some NASA people. So oddly, solar system and planet comes into a play. But the idea here, right, is when you get the chance, you just have to understand how Tableau wants to interact with the information that you're feeding it. And it's trying to do its absolute best, but sometimes you need to be a little bit of a human intervention. So Tableau data source type, again, it offers a fantastic list of connections, right? CSV, database, live connections, PDF reader. If you guys haven't tried that, is really interesting, especially for people that are importing PDFs, spatial and etc. Right? But when possible, my final source, and so we're very fortunate, state of Indiana, we always try to get our data management team to publish to a Tableau server source. It helps us with scheduled extracts. It helps us with additional security and automation. So when I say additional security and automation, imagine someone who has ill intent trying to get into your information, your data, and then once they hit the extract, it's all that's available to it, right? So then they get blocked there. So they can't actually explore additional tables or resources past what that data set that's already been approved for public has been seen. Same idea if you are using Tableau Prep. Again, it absolutely loves hyperfiles. It's just the best way to connect. Fact tables are lean data sets. So fact tables are great for individual granularity. They're great for exploring and they're very informative. However, when you go to actually produce, make sure that what you have columns-wise is your must-haves. Make sure that it's as aggregated as possible and that any of your common calculations, like such as age ranges or things of that nature, that you can actually put those into the data set. So anytime you can offload the work from Tableau into your data set or data source early, it makes things a lot easier on Tableau's performance. And again, these are just little idiosyncrasies that you can do at the beginning to help add up to a very good end final product. So wide versus long data sets. So again, Tableau reads top to bottom, left to right. The idea here, right, is you're trying to limit the number of data sources that it's interacting with, because again, every time that you make a join or change, it's live. Imagine Tableau. So for me, former SQL developer, every time you press run, right, that works. It's the same equivalent as if you were doing that for the entirety of your dashboard. Whenever you click so if you click a county on a map, right, it has to go back and render against the entirety of whatever it is you've given it. So if it's millions of rows, it could be billions of rows by the time you've done all your joins. And those joins can be easily cleaned up by just how you think about the connections and the relationships and helping Tableau blend. Or, right, if instead of having to connect to 5 different ones, what if it connected to just one master, and then you had a very, again, lean, long data source that you can easily churn through, and it can do a much more efficient job doing that than going through 5 or so connections and trying to remember how to relate each other. So case or if. And it depends. So case is for specific selections and if is more for calculations, I would argue. The idea here being, right, if Tableau was to read the calculation, it's going to read it until the content or the idea is fulfilled. So if I said distro 1, right, we all agree, hey, C, 50% of all content for this distribution is found in C. Distro 2 is 50% in B. Distro 3 is A. So if we had a logical order of things, right, we would interpret it as, all right, I'm just going to do, in this case when this distro is A, and that would work for distro 3 because the majority of the calculation would stop on the first line. But if you went with distro 1, right, and the idea here being that if you tried to find, the majority of it would be in C. So this is, you know, we're only talking 3 lows of calculation here, but the idea here, right, is that it would have to read the entirety of the calculation for every individual row versus, right, if you knew the distribution early and you could set it up yourself, right, think of it as your own indexing system. So if I told you find letters A, B, C, or D, or if I told you to find letters Y and Z, right? Indexing really just kind of couples and groups up. And so that's kind of what we're doing here, right? So it helps you, the end user, interact with the system where you get to get that extra level of control into how Tableau is operating. Otherwise, it's going to do exactly what you think or exactly what you say because it has the idea that you know what's best. Numeric versus varchar. So numerics being 0, 1, 2, 3, up to infinity. The idea here being whenever I have the chance, and if I'm using a toggle, right, between 2 options, I'm always going to give it a bit. It's either going to be a yes or no, a 0 or 1. If it's a multitude of options, 0, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. The idea here is that I try to avoid text whenever I can. Now, what that means is like, and where this matters, right? It matters both in your parameters and your calculations. So parameters, right? When you create a parameter, you have what's shown and then what's the actual value. And so when you get to the actual value, that's when you switch to your numeric. So in the parameter, right, it could be, hey, hello, all the good stuff, the descriptive fields for us users in user experience. But when you go into it and you actually start using your calculations based off of those parameters, you can always flip it back to being numeric. Otherwise, Tableau will have to read, hey, in Tableau, by the way, is very case sensitive. So if you're looking at hey, and it's spelled with a capital H-E-Y, or it doesn't have a capital H but has an E, so it's going to interpret those as very different situations. So whereas you don't have the issue with formatting for 0s, 1s, and 9s, so the idea here being when in doubt, and you're building out your parameters, you're building out your calculations, lean on the numerics, and it helps Tableau interpret faster than it would have to individually read write for the varchar. The last one here is quick filters or applied filters. So if you are enabling a single select or a drop down of some kind, where you're not doing like a multitude of multi-selects, I would go with a quick filter. It makes a lot of sense. So it's an easy toggle, 1, 2. However, if you're doing something with a multitude of selects, so all 92 counties for the state of Indiana is a really great example. You don't want to, every time that you uncheck things, to have Tableau trying to go a render. So what that ends up doing, and just imagine you doing that, because it's going to hit the data source every time you uncheck a box, and that you're not even getting any value out of that. You're in the process, right, of getting the filters that you want applied to the dimension or to the field that's being available to you. Now, when you click apply filter, it freezes everything. And then as you're selecting things, you can do one query instead of a multitude. So if I wanted 90 of the 92 counties, or if I wanted 5 out of the 92 counties, so it's all about how you stage it in that aspect. And it's a really minute detail. So if you go to like an apply filter, you hit customize, and then you show apply button. It's one of those slick features that no one complains about me adding. And it adds a great deal of, it brings back user experience. That is the highest of high for data optimization, tips on how to optimize your Tableau dashboards. And again, guys, if you guys have any additional questions or if you are running into any errors, just feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help. That is my professional email at dbagwell@mph.gov. Thank you so much for your time.
Great job, Dakota. Let me share my screen and we can get back. All right, we're 10 minutes before the hour, and we just need to wrap up with a few mentions of please connect with us via these two links. Clay is going to be putting them into the chat. So if you're not getting these invites to the quarterly meetings that we're having here in Indianapolis, and we're really pushing for to be in person in Q3, please connect with us via these two links that we have in the chat. Check your spam and junk folder. Connect with us on LinkedIn and the link that we had provided earlier in the chat. We're going to be having a Q3, as I said, in person. If you know or you want to speak, please reach out to me or any one of the co-leaders. And what we're going to be doing is trying to have it in person. So if you know someone that has an ability to host, let us know. Otherwise, thank you and enjoy your Wednesday night. Thank you, everyone.